Okay, I'm starting this for the third time because I wanted to get my facts straight, and I thought I had them all straight. Välkommen tillbaka, tack för sist. Welcome back, thanks for being here. If you watched my video yesterday, towards the end, I had this memory spur back into my brain, and it's a big one. Excuse me. I grew up in this little town, Tabor, Alberta, Canada. Nothing ever happened. You know, it was a safe, very safe town. Nobody locked their doors. It was just, there were petty crimes, shoplifting, that kind of stuff. The biggest thing I ever remember happening was this guy I actually knew was murdered. And it involved a drug dealer who I knew who he was. It was a big deal. Stuff like that never happened. Well, in April of 1981, in a little town called Standard, Alberta, Canada, a girl disappeared. She was 15 years old. I was 17 at the time, so she wasn't a whole lot younger than me. Excuse me. And it was a big deal. Her name was Kelly Cook. You can Google this, and it was huge. This is obviously long before social media, the internet, any of that. But it was on the news every day because it was so uncommon for this to happen. And I remember thinking she's going to be found. She ran off with her boyfriend or something weird like that. And the reason I'm telling this story is because I have a connection to this that I wish would have gotten explored more. So here's what happened. April 22nd, I think it was. I don't have that page up anymore, but I think it was April 22nd of 1981. She was abducted, kidnapped. And a 15-year-old girl. And Standard, Alberta, where she lived, is a tiny little town, northeast of Calgary, which is a big city. But yeah, it made national news. It might have even been in the US because it was a big deal. And I remember listening to the news reports every day. I worked at a gas station at the time. It was called Turbo Gas Station. And I worked there pumping gas. Back then, we pumped the gas for the customer. And she just disappeared without a trace. And it wasn't, this is such a weird story because she ended up turning up in a reservoir, a lake, right near where I lived. In fact, it was people I knew that found her. She was found in it was a reservoir. It's called Chin Lake. We called it Chin Lake, but it's a reservoir. It's basically an irrigation ditch that opens up into a big lake, many miles long. But it's like a giant irrigation ditch. And she was found there by, I don't want to say their names, but by some people I know on June 28th, 1981. It says she was found by teenagers. Well, I knew those teenagers. She had cinder blocks tying her down, bound with ropes and weighted down with cinder blocks to prevent her from surfacing. She washed up on the shore. This was an enormous story. Nowadays, because of the internet, you hear about everything that happens everywhere. But when you grow up isolated from that, bad things actually don't happen that much. Even now, it's just now we hear everything that happens, whether it's in Canada or China or Norway or Germany or North Dakota, wherever, you hear about everything. Well, back then, you did not hear about everything. So this was a gigantic story. It's hard to even, I don't have the adjectives to describe how big this was. And, everybody was holding out hope that this poor girl would be found. And just something dumb. Like I said, she'd run off with her boyfriend or something. Well, there was a sketch put out, a composite sketch And I honestly don't remember if it was after she was found or before she was found. I think it was before. I was working at a gas station, and I remember my boss brought in this sketch. You know what a composite sketch looks like. It's like a pencil drawing. You've seen it on CSI or, SVU or any of those shows. And it was put up in our gas station. Well, here's the crazy part that involves me. So before the sketch was put up, I'm working the pumps one night, and I remember it was night, it was dark, and our boss was because, well, I was 17, so I guess you could only have one. If I was going to say you had to have two people working, but that was if you were 16 or under. I was 17 at the time, and this dude showed up, and I pumped his gas, and I got such a weird vibe off the guy right off the bat. He was just a creepy dude. And man, it's amazing when these memories come back to you and the visceral feelings you get. It's just crazy. So anyway, this guy, creepy feeling. I go out and pump his gas. He walks into the gas station. And back then, gas stations weren't like they are now. They weren't these big convenience stores with coolers everywhere. We had a few candy bars, some cigarettes you could buy. But the main part of our gas station was a muffler shop in the back. So he walked in there and was just standing there. I pumped his gas. I don't remember how much it was. Gas was pretty cheap back then. It was probably 10 or 15 bucks. But he gives me a credit card. And back then, if you remember, you take the credit card and you put it on this. Well, if you've ever seen the movie Christmas Vacation, where Chevy Chase puts his credit card down and they swipe across with the carbon paper, that's what I did. But if it was over a certain amount, you had to call it in because, like I said, there was no Wi-Fi, there was no internet. And he must have bought some more stuff. Maybe he bought a carton of cigarettes or something. But it was over whatever the limit was, $20, whatever that was. So I called in the credit card while he was standing right in front of me. I was 17. This guy was, he was a lot older than me. And when you're young, it's hard to judge. I'd say he was 35 to 45, but I don't remember. He was just a lot older than me. And I called in the credit card, and they looked it up with their computers. It took a couple of minutes, and they said, sir, that's a stolen credit card. We need you to take the credit card and cut it up. And I'm like, hold on, let me tell the customer. So I kind of moved the phone away from my ear. I said, I'm really sorry, sir, but this card is listed as stolen, and they've told me I have to cut it up. And he kind of leaned towards the counter and he says, do not cut this card up. And I get back on the phone and I'm like, he's really adamant that he does not want me to cut the card. And they're like, it's a stolen card, you have to cut the card. And so I put the phone down again and said, I'm really sorry, sir, I have to cut the card. You're gonna have to pay another way. And he said, do not cut the card. And he got like really close to me. I already had the creeps. I was a 17-year-old. I wasn't a tiny little guy, but I wasn't, I was not some MMA fighter. And he freaked me out a little bit, but I grabbed the scissors and I just cut the card in half right in front of him. And he leaned towards the counter like he was going to come across and punch me, fight me, something. But all of a sudden, something happened. He just calmed down and he stood back up. And I kept the credit card company on the phone this whole time. And, I kind of put the phone down, but I didn't hang up. And I said, I'm really sorry, sir. It's whatever it was, 23 something. And he's like, well, whatever the extra was, he couldn't afford. So he just paid for the gas, which was, I don't know, $8, $9, $10, whatever it was back then. And he paid for it, but the guy was burned into my brain. So I can't remember if I think it was the next day, but it might have been a couple days later. I mean, this is 45 years ago. Almost exactly 45 years ago, actually. because she was abducted April 22nd. So it's coming up on the 45th anniversary of her being taken. By the way, this crime has never been solved, as far as I know. It's awful. So, the next day, or whatever it was, 2 days later, my boss comes in, and I could see him holding a piece of paper. He was an English dude. I actually don't remember his name, but I remember his last name. I'm not going to say it. I'm sure he seemed like an old fart then. He's probably passed on, but just in case, or his family, I don't want to say his name. He shows up, and I can see him holding this paper, like a flyer. And I finally asked him. He was not the most approachable guy. He was not a good boss. He treated us like crap. He was not a good dude. And I finally said, "What do you got?" Oh, I just remembered his first name. Richard, I think. I said, "What do you got there?" And we called him by his first name. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, the police brought this by." I said, "What is it?" And he says, "Oh, you know, the Kelly Cook disappearance." And I'm like, "Yeah, everybody knows about Kelly Cook." He's like, "Well, this is a sketch of the, possible suspect." And he still didn't put it up. And I don't know, I walked out to pump gas or whatever, and he put it up in the main entrance there. And when I walked back in, I saw this picture sitting there, and I froze. It was, I can feel it now. It was so intense. Excuse me. I got the creeps like I've never had in my life. I was staring at the dude from the night before. It was so intense. And I just started shaking. And when I finally, got my wits together, I went to my boss and said, "That guy was here last night. This is the car he was driving. This is who he is." Sorry. And I said, we need to call the police right now. And he acted very nonchalant, like, "Okay, yeah, whatever, idiot kid." And I said, "Let's call right now." And he says, "I'm going to go in my office. I'm going to call them." Well, he went in his office. He never called. And finally, like 2 or 3 days later, I'm like, "Did you call the cops?" Because nobody's contacted me. Nobody's asked me about this guy. I can describe his car. And it became really clear that he had never called the cops. I don't know what I did after that. I have no memory of what I did after that. I don't know if I called the police. But yeah, I don't know for positive 100% that this was the guy that took her and murdered her, because it was a sketch that somebody saw some guy that was in the area when she was abducted. And I don't know for positive that it was him, but I know for positive he was not a good dude. He was a creep. He was a weirdo. He had a stolen credit card. I was looking at the name that Bill Christensen was the name of the guy that asked her to babysit. I don't remember the name of the credit card. Obviously, this is 45 years ago, but wow. I did not expect it to hit this hard this many years later. And her family, I'm sure, is still looking for closure. We have a very similar case where I live now in Utah. A girl that disappeared 30 something years ago, and I think she was 15 as well. And somebody actually got convicted of her murder and served a prison sentence, but he got let out last year. And but he never would say where she was. I don't know if this was a good idea to do this video or not. You know, when it popped in my head yesterday, I thought, wow, that's an intriguing, gripping story. But when I think about it, it's like, yeah, there's still no closure to this. I mean, I hope whoever did this died in some horrific accident, or, you know, got what he's got coming, whether in this life or the next life. Guilt is not the right word, because I tried to do something about it. I don't know why my boss never followed up on it. Oh, I'm looking at the sketch. Holy crap. Holy crap, there's the sketch. Wow, that's a sketch that that's the dude. Okay, all right. I don't know what else to say. Did not mean this to be a downer video. I guess if there's any upside, it's keep your eyes open, be vigilant. I mean, nowadays it's so much harder to get away with this kind of thing because there are cameras everywhere. Everybody has a camera in their hand all the time. You know, if this would have happened now, I would have videoed his car or something, you know, his license plate. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Not the happiest video, but it's a real video. It's true. This happened to me. I don't know if it was the guy that did it. I've already said that. I'm repeating myself. I'm sorry. I'm a little off right now. I did not expect to. Yeah. So, listen, I'll get back to something more positive, because wow, I can't do videos like this very often. It's wow, that's draining. Listen, a lot of you seem really into the Mormon videos I do as an ex-Mormon. I mean, I'm not technically an ex-Mormon. I'm still on the records just because I don't care. I've had a bunch of you write me and say you need to take your name off there, but it just doesn't mean anything to me. So I will get back to stuff like that and maybe something happier. Talk about the 70s and growing up, kind of what set this all in motion, this video here. So I'm going to end it here. I really do hope you have a great night. I don't want to say I hope you enjoyed this video, because that's just not the right word. I hope it makes you vigilant. I hope it makes you look out for your fellow human beings. You know, we can all look out for each other. I got nothing left to say. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. Love.